on, but anticipate needing to adjust or whatever with the Plan EIS being adopted. Folks online, did you have any thoughts on the scorecard or questions or anything? Brandon, this is not a required document, right? And there's no cadence or schedule of required updates or anything. This is entirely kind of
this. We were kind of, if I remember right, we were one of the first counties that did this because they were just getting going with this C grant and everything. So we somehow got in contact with Jackson Parr, who did it with UW, and yeah, it was kind of one of the first ones. We could always update it, do it again, and get an updated version of it. Because I think more have been done since then. And he's been going to a lot of conferences and talking to other counties and whoever's there to do this for themselves. So
cool. Do you know if Monroe has one?
Jen might know.
Oh yeah.
Jen, do you know if Monroe County has done a flood resilience scorecard at all? As far as I can find out too.
I know we had the presentation from Jackson Parr, and I suspect we're using one. I just don't know that it's maybe in the public knowledge sector quite the same way.
Okay.
It came out from a partnership with the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. We received a grant. Amy Kleiber got one for nitrate testing, putting in the lab in, where she had to send away for results, and now she can do that in-house testing, which is really important in the aftermath of a flood. And I was the other half of that, where we had the grant for the now entering into the watershed signs that went on our county roads, partnership with the highway department that posted those up across the county. So they enjoyed, I think, working with us in that capacity, and so they were excited to then say, hey, would you like to take the next step and do this? So I think that's where that came out of.
Cool. I just mentioned Monroe because obviously we're downstream of them, and so it makes sense to think outside of those arbitrary lines too. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing this. We'll get it to department heads and see what kind of feedback and potential updates. What other administrative items might we have? Is this where we would talk about direction, or is that more like later agenda items for
Next meeting? Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I guess we'll move on to the next item there, which is Ridge to River Disaster Resilience. And Jen Schmitz from that organization is here with us and has a presentation to share. Am I understanding correctly? Wonderful.
That is correct. Yeah, I am Jen Schmitz from River to Ridge Disaster Resilience. Just as a quick reminder, when the 2018 flooding happened, the long-term recovery group that had been in the region with the 2000, I believe it was 11 to 13 era, something like that. Did I get the years wrong, Brandon?
It goes all the way back to 08.
Thank you. See, this is why we need each other. The long-term recovery group resurrected, recreating and organizing in 2019, 2020 is when we officially changed our name to River to Ridge Disaster Resilience and started our website. And I will switch to the slideshow. Now, let's see, what did I have to do? Hit share here. And then let's see if we get in the slideshow now. Does that look like one slide?
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. So as I said, we rebranded and started our website. This is our branding, Together We Rise. If you haven't gone to our website, I am so happy the link is live on the agenda if you have a virtual copy. And I really encourage you to go to our website. I'm not planning to go to it today unless you guys request it, but it is our main form of communication to the outside world. It's also where we try to share the structures of the plans that we have in place. Um, it clearly functions as a hub. We do not want to recreate anything. We just want to direct people to sources of information. And that is stated in our purpose, as well as our vision and mission, which are also all three on the website. And then we've done our best, like I said, to include a variety of resources on the website. This is our smaller logo that we use most often. And as far as the information that is primarily featured there is, consider most of that information as some sort of mitigation work, where we're addressing seasonal risks and hazards, and those different resources that come with it. And we try to redirect people to their county as much as possible, knowing that some of these hazards shift from county to county, though region is generally where it's at. And we're doing our best to update these seasonally and or as other information is changing. As an example, we are aware that some of our economic development links were not operating 2 weeks ago, and I would guess they're probably still not live. We've also participated in different projects throughout the years. I don't remember if it was 22 or 23 that we did those weather radio distributions. We've also been participating in the different watershed communities. Primarily, it started out with the Coon Creek watershed, but as Hill Country Alliance has come to light and the neighboring watersheds, we've been very aware of what's been happening, and the Little Lacrosse watershed, and also being part of this Vernon County Flood Mitigation Alliance has been a key link, as well as the Monroe County Climate Change Task Force, to all of those watershed communities. Another opportunity that arose was when I was still sitting on Monroe's County Board. AGU Thriving Earth did a pitch to the Wisconsin Counties Association about the projects they were offering. And with Bob McKeel, we selected Norwalk and the Moore Creek Dam, or Tri Creek, I think Dam is what they call it. Also, as a high hazard to the village of Norwalk, because it was it's a very large earthen dam, that much of the village residents were not aware even was there, and flood risk should it breach. And quite frankly, I think like half to 2/3 of the residents in town would be in danger of flooding should that dam breach. And so we did really just an awareness campaign in talking with the village staff, and then creating maps in both English and Spanish for the residents of the village, and worked with the village staff to distribute them throughout Norwalk. We also worked to establish 2 churches that are on higher ground as safe spots that the village residents could go to, and that is all included on this double-sided map that we then got printed and distributed, as I said. And then Monique was also aware of this project and started the Vernon County project, which we'll address a little bit later. And Monique, I encourage you to jump in on that one at any point. But that one was really, I think, tying into what you guys already addressed in the administrative conversation about how these all areas of county government come together, but it's also then reliant on landowners to selectively choose practices in our rural areas. And so we were working to create, I would just say, support communication and information to get people aware and interested in different practices on the land. The
Hey, Jen,
other
can I
part,
interrupt?
yeah, absolutely.
AGU Thriving Earth, is that like private sector company, or what is that?
I believe it's a nonprofit
Okay.
worldwide organization, but Monique, help me out, please.
Yeah, a consortium of, I believe an NGO, but with pairing up with scientists to work on a variety of projects. It's not financially funded projects, but intellectual knowledge,
Yeah, technical support.
resourcing. Yeah,
Okay. And so in partnership with them, you executed that Norwalk project?
Yeah. So
Okay.
what it requires on the local level is a local community champion, and then your local experts. And then, as Monique said, you get assigned a fellow project manager, and then with the work you put forward, you put out for a scientist fellow to come and specialize with your group. So in Norwalk, we had a hydrologist that had emergency management experience, and FEMA, I think, experience specifically with it. And our project manager, she was, uh, I think she was a physical engineer PhD student as well. And then for the Vernon County one, we have a water hydrologist PhD, I think, is that Kuhn's correct descriptor? And then another, oh, I'm going to forget Eric Barefoot's credentials, but he's got like these crazy connection skills with water and land use planning, and then computer skills.
So is that something you anticipate doing in other communities in Monroe County? Is that an option?
It is an option, Wade, and it doesn't have to be Monroe County. Um, and actually, thanks for asking that question, because I've been kicking around, like, I think there's definitely another project opportunity, and what it is, I'm not exactly sure. Um, I'm not exactly sure. I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Okay.
And I find it fascinating how Monroe, Vernon, and La Crosse and Crawford County really have to work together, but how we're not always paired together for all of this hazard planning stuff. But yet the plans are out there. It's just really complicated to work together.
Okay, thank you.
And you guys are the experts. So I just am like this person from a nonprofit standpoint, right? Back to the slideshow. Because one of the things in 2018 that was really apparent was the need for case management um, as soon as that flooding happened. And that is a lot of the drive behind why we created the website. We want to always be ready for that local case management related to any local disaster like that flash flooding. If we would have major fires, even apartment fires as they've come through, happened in the past few years, have been pretty major, sometimes tornadoes and windstorms. Just recognizing that when entire communities are getting affected by these disasters, it need that community, those people need surround care from the other communities, and the larger that disaster space is, the more this, like what we think of as sort of the surround care of case management um, is most apparent. So we've always got um, a version of the initial case management information ready to go. We can update it fairly quickly. We've practiced it and or done it live now a couple of times where we can get that out there and then quickly get it out to our any resource partners that are also going to be really helpful if they're not already getting this information. So Red Cross and Cooley Cap have been very frequent partners up front. The 211 system that United Way operates is also a frequent uh, gathering of information, and we've tried to stay coordinated as much as possible so that if anyone needs um, resources from multiple agencies, that we're not having to duplicate too much work. or information, because we know that that is very taxing for those that have been affected by a disaster. And then the last thing is behind all of this information and resource sharing is the obvious coordination with key partners like emergency management, the Wisconsin Volunteers Organizing Aid and Disaster. The VOAD network is where Red Cross, United Way, Cooley Cap are present as regional members, and statewide Salvation Army, United Methodist, Wisconsin Council of Churches, and quite a few others are also frequent attendees there. I'm forgetting a few others, Team Rubicon. And I think that's also where the ITDR staff people are also frequently in attendance. Other groups like Wisconsin Partners, which give just a little bit different mix of state associates, is also there, and county government is like very essential in a lot of these coordination pieces, but not always as frequent in maybe how we exchange information. But like I said, with the Climate Change Task Force and this Vernon County Alliance, the information that we want to highlight from river to ridge has been very obvious, I think. Again, the value of this site is that we can put in these live links, and then use them. Like any of those live links are also then really easy to use on any social media platforms once we have the website as that base information. So like I know Monroe County Land Conservation has a Facebook, and they'll put out stuff for the watershed and the climate change stuff, which is sometimes really nice. And then we'll share it over to the river to ridge page, or the Coon Creek watershed, or other things like that where we can bounce information back and forth. That's where I'm sort of highlighting. If you want to see our Thriving Earth projects, we've got that link available. I'll send this. Actually, Brandon, you already have this slideshow, I believe. So if anyone wants to check out those projects, I encourage you to do that. And as part of the Vernon County piece, there is a pilot site right now that like I said, Eric Barefoot, our fellow, is hosting on his personal space. But what this allows us to do is to share this out to interested parties like all of you, gather some feedback, and then based on that feedback, if there's any major changes we want to make to that particular Vernon County project, we still can evaluate if it's useful or if we've created something that's not that useful, was I think also part of the evaluation we want to get to. But then the other part of the value of our river to ridge site is we can constantly adapt this and change it. And I think it's been like under construction pretty much from the start. I'm always looking for feedback and ideas of what to change. And I think that's where I'll leave it at the moment, except for I think, going beyond and behind recovery. Other things that we can do on the website that I haven't mentioned. One, we do have a donations button, and we can, so that when a disaster happens, that's already set up and live, as we know that that's oftentimes when people are most willing to share money, but don't know how to distribute it to people that need those dollars. It's also where we can promote conservation and different preparedness things, like having your to-go bag ready to go, having a plan for where to meet loved ones should you have a fire or your home is destroyed for some other reason. And just that general awareness, education. And then again, part of that mission vision that we had is filling the gaps locally. So we're always looking for the is there a new struggle that's just getting missed? How can we help? Or if a disaster has happened, what didn't get done, and how can we maybe prevent that in a future round? And lastly, but not least, we recognize that the person is what keeps an organization alive. So this year we participated in the Bright Horizons exercises where I traveled to Black River Falls supporting the West Central REM region on day 1, and day 2 we were in Vernon County with the South Central REM region, correct, Brandon?
Yeah, Southwest, yep.
Southwest, thank you. And we were excited because in this one picture we had our new floor banner up with our mission behind it. We participated in the Coon Valley Concert annual anniversary with the Coon Creek Watershed and the Farmers and Fishers demonstration water table and water flow table, which was a really fun in-person activity. And the bottom 2 pictures are the winter scene is our Norwalk Thriving Earth team on site looking at the creek running, Moore Creek running right through Norwalk. And the other one in the field with the hill is actually at, I think that's Duck Egg. I always get the Vernon County spots mixed up, where we were, Sammer was working with them on, I think, launching the drone so we could have pictures that we could use for the website so that we did not have any challenges with those photos. But we understand that being in person with people, especially in case management, is really essential to long-term recovery. Brandon, what did I miss for what we needed to address here?
I think that was good. I'll just add that the River to Ridge covers 4 counties. It's Monroe, La Crosse, Vernon, and Crawford counties. Right now, as Jen mentioned, it started in 08, it went dormant after kind of the recovery was done there, came back in 2018, was pretty active for a couple of years now. We're just trying to stay afloat and just stay there, so it doesn't completely go away again. Myself, I'm the vice chair of that group. Amy Oliver is also on the board, and there's one from Red Cross on the board, and then just as we get together as a larger group, all those counties are invited for those bigger meetings, but the board does meet still regularly, just to stay afloat. So no pun intended, but so that's I guess where we're at. I don't know if Amy, if you had anything else to add. No, I think that was good, Jen. Thanks.
Maybe the only other thing I should add, we've also got like Cooley Cap and La Crosse Fire in regular attendance. And we did have a grant with Serve Wisconsin, but that ended. And yeah, the trying to stay afloat is a very accurate description now of where we're at.
And actually the chair of the committee, Michelle Ang, was here in 2008. She kind of started the long-term recovery group then, and she's stuck with it. So she worked for Cooley Cap back then, stuck with this group through the whole thing. She's a pastor now, so she's got that network with everybody on that side as well. So that helps.
She's at Emmanuel Lutheran, right?
Yep.
Okay. I have 2 questions, but I want to wait and see if anybody online, or questions for Jen or Brandon or Amy. Okay.
Fire away.
Okay. First is just understanding, of course, that, as an organization, you're kind of just trying to maintain a presence right now. And we're not currently in a moment of crisis. What do you see as like the most immediate opportunities for collaboration with this body, with Vernon County writ large? And if it's not anything currently, that's fine. I'm just curious, like, if we go somewhere after you're learning about this organization.
I think just trying to get the outreach out there to people to make sure that they know that this group exists. So they know where to go. That was part of one of that media outreach I did a couple months ago about being that trusted source for information. The county would be one central site and then links out to others, where media can go get that information, where people can go to get the information in a single spot to try and get rid of that misinformation.
And you're referring to Ridge to Rivers when you,
Yep.
yeah, okay, as that place.
Yep.
Yep.
Well,
okay.
yeah, and or so even the county's website would have River to Ridge's link. So then
Okay.
they could go work hand in hand. And then I've got a seminar coming up in March. I'll talk about at the next agenda item, but to help get more outreach out to the public. So.
And is it, I mean, the website, Jen, you mentioned this, is it intended kind of to be mostly like a clearinghouse of available resources? Just sort of a one-stop shop for people that are looking for information or resources about these kinds of issues?
Yeah, and I think it also references, checking with your insurance company first, going through those steps kind of helps you with those steps. And then, working up towards submitting an application to the group for long-term funding.
Right.
Because it may be something smaller right now. They'll look at like the immediate needs. And if it's not those are more of an immediate need, where this group is more that long-term. So we look at those applications and review them, for that. So it is just somewhat of a clearinghouse for what they have, and then have other links within it too.
Okay. And then my other question is about this Vernon County project with Thriving Earth. I'm on their website looking at the project description. Is that like, and forgive me if this is my ignorance showing here, but is that like happening, prospective, done? Where is that?
We are like really close to done. We've started official closeout
Okay.
because we've got the pilot site up, and that was the deliverable that we were aiming for. Eric Barefoot is being very generous in saying he'll host the site beyond what'll be, I think, official project closeout, so that we can have it as a useful item. Like, he's willing to do whatever tweaks are needed and or whatever handoff if we want that at some point in the future.
And when you say the site, you're referring to that link that you shared that from Eric?
Yep, that's the one.
Can you flash that on the screen one more time?
I can get it.
Or you, or Brandon? Okay, Brandon can distribute it too.
Okay. And or, yeah, I might be able to get it in the chat.
Chat's turned off, so I can
Okay, cool.
I can
You got it
send
then.
out the PowerPoint to the committee.
Okay.
Awesome. And I would just say one other thing that I've noticed in my, tenure at River to Ridge is that a lot of people have changed leadership roles since like the 2018 flood, when we look at the whole state. And so at different organizations or departments, it's more noticeable. And so that to me is part of what's really important in this, like just keeping contacts updated and these sites live.
Cool.
And I think the other thing that I've noticed, and in the administrative report that you guys just did earlier, is from an outside perspective, this is really complicated language, specialized language that is extremely sometimes overwhelming. And it takes multiple, I think, organizations and entities and specialized roles within them sometimes to help guide people into the space that's most effective for them. And so like I think River to Ridge is one of those where we're just trying to initially cast a broad net of, if you need information, maybe this is a good starting point to eventually guide you to the space and people you most need. Um, because like Brandon said, we're thinking about a long-term space, not the short-term, like emergency management and Red Cross are thinking about immediate needs right away. But they, like Red Cross, right, in particular, oftentimes has to leave a disaster after, what is it, about 2 weeks? So, thank you.
Thank you. Um, any other questions for Jen or Amy or Brandon before we move on?
I would have one. Jen, thanks so much for presenting. I'm glad to finally see like an official like overview of your work. You are involved in many realms, and I want to thank you for your efforts with this. You had mentioned the struggles of the different entities not often working together. I'm wondering if you would have a recommendation for us to consider in the work that the Flood Mitigation Alliance does going forward that could assist the River to Ridge disaster, or recommendations from that outside perspective that you mentioned. That's important insight that some of us on the inside fail to appreciate. And so I'd love an opportunity to ask you if there's things that the county and or the region could do that you would recommend we consider when going forward as the Flood Mitigation Alliance 2.0 kind of can, breathe new life into this work.
Ooh, you asked a good and tough question, Monique. This is my gut answer. We had some really good but really challenging conversations last week in a series of meetings that I was involved in.
Yes.
And honestly, like it started with a Wisconsin VOAD meeting, followed by the regional.
Can you share the acronym so people know?
Oh, yeah. So that was the Wisconsin Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. And we were doing first our board meeting, which was, and then planning for the next full meeting. And, a lot of the nonprofits are kind of scrambling, restructuring to see what, how we're going to continue forward in a variety of ways. Then there were conversations at the regional emergency, was that, I think I went to an emergency management meeting, and that was a very different conversation, but also an awareness of like, we might have to adjust budgets dramatically. And then the next day it was the conversation at Monroe County about demonstration farms, which is also tricky. And it's this question of, is there going to be funding to support this? And then it was the Coon Creek board member report out, right? And you guys were having a big, long meeting, I believe. And that demonstration farm was only one of the conversations. And then I went to a farmers union just gathering of coming together to have some community time. And yet there's this realization of how many programs are probably affected in this group as well, like pallidly hanging over a supposedly fun gathering. And I don't know, the week continued in much that realm. And these are just difficult conversations. And in none of them was anybody losing their cool. And I think that is a really important thing, because when people's arms are waving in any meetings that like that I'm listed, it's pretty unsettling to the entire group and not very productive in any form of recovery. So, I mean, I think it feels like we've come a long way since 2018 when we were scrambling and there were arms waving in many rooms.
Thank you, Jen. It's just, it's helpful to have that insight. We have resources at the county that should be leveraged to the communities, the public that we serve. And so sometimes having that insight, not sometimes, it's always helpful to have this open conversation and oftentimes difficult dialogues that we're engaging in. And the times that, you know, we're experiencing and disasters typically being a struggle, but I'm really grateful that you came to present so that you can keep us abreast on the work that you're doing. And hopefully the folks at the table in the Flood Mitigation Alliance will think about how can we, you know, strengthen our relationship and, or, you know, how do we continue to support one another and these, you know, efforts that definitely overlap.
Yeah, I will add, because like this was, I needed brain air, oxygen. By the end of the week in multiple groups, it is very apparent in our rural areas that the attachments to land and the correlating money that goes with it is very unsteady right now. People are spiraling, and we shared multiple times about, remember that if you are thinking of harming yourself or others, that you need to ask for help, and that important phone number is 988. I can't believe how many times I have repeated this now in the last 5 days.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Important work.
Yeah, for sure. Resilience has a lot of different facets. We have space next for announcements, and it says partner updates, and I actually have a question about that. Are we, and maybe this bleeds into the next one, which is agenda items for next meeting too. You know, we have 3 seats on this alliance that are held by representatives from local watershed alliances. Those are, you know, when I think about partners, I immediately think of those folks, but obviously that's a much broader category. So I'm wondering if we want to include in our regular structure exactly that, which, you know, just more definition to partner updates. Do we, I know that not every watershed alliance is going to have something to bring every time, but do we want to make sure that we you know, open the floor to those folks to give us an update on what's going on in their spaces? Yeah, Nancy, we see you.
Hi. So I was just thinking about this as I was listening to Jen talk. So first, let me say, Jen, oh my gosh, thank you for that overview. I echo everything that Monique says. And I understand so much better now. And yeah, we have to work together more closely. And just thank you for what you're doing. Brandon, Amy, the extent that you guys provide public service outside of your work and the things that you do, thank you so very much. That is so important. Wade, to get to what you're saying, we have had, I forget now, is it 3 meetings, Flood Mitigation Alliance meetings, I think, and we've had updates from the Vernon County departments on their work and what they're doing. And so it does make sense to me. In fact, actually, updates is the wrong word, presentations. And so I was thinking as a possible agenda item was, why don't we invite each watershed to do a presentation, just like Jen just did, or the departments have done on who we are and what we do. We can provide updates, and I think that's a good idea to always have that on the agendas. But each of the watersheds have such different identities. And to lump watershed councils together is kind of puts too much generality into it. And so I would offer two ideas actually for agenda items. One of them being, let's ask the councils to present. I know that we would be happy to, we've done presentations for other organizations, so we would be happy to do that. And then this is a different idea, but I'm wondering if we should have some conversation around what other departments should be sitting at the table. I mean, Department of Health comes to mind right away for me when we're talking about disasters, and perhaps there are others.
Yeah, and Nancy, I think, you know, if there was an initial presentation from watershed groups, then the term update becomes a little more pertinent or appropriate, once we have kind of the background information and everybody's well informed. You know, particularly as it relates to ongoing projects and opportunities or risks or whatever that you all have are grappling with. Do we want to segue then into that conversation about next, I mean, not just maybe next meeting, but if I can take the liberty of expanding that to explore our structure a little bit?
Before we go that far, I do
Yeah.
have one announcement.
Please.
It's been pushed out into the media and public, but March 19th, I'm hosting a disaster recovery resources seminar at the Westby Performing Arts Center at 6 p.m. It's a Wednesday evening. Something I kind of dreamed up, thought about as we talk about knowing what resources are out there for people before, during, and after disasters. So as part of that, there's River to Ridge is going to present, Red Cross, Salvation Army, Cooley Cap, 211, and myself. So each 10 to 15-minute presentations, just like Jen just did, and then have handouts for whoever comes. So it's open to the public. I'm hoping that we can have a large presence there because there's a lot of space there. That's why we picked that space. So I'm going to keep pushing it. I did just create a Facebook event, so hopefully that gets out there as well for people to share. But it's exciting to have it, and we're trying to get ahead of obviously the potential flood season. Obviously we don't have a lot of snowpack right now, but that could change pretty quickly. So just getting it out there is you know, so people know what 211 is and does, and you know, Red Cross, Salvation Army, what they can do aside from what they normally do, and you know, what resources Cooley Cap has, and that type of stuff. So that's coming up. We'll keep pushing that and go from there. So that's coming up. I have more coming, but it's more spring, summer that we can. There's more time to go before I mention that. So
Has that been communicated to our municipal governments?
yes,
Yeah, okay,
the initial email I sent out went to probably 400 people.
okay.
So, yep, I went to all municipalities, the media, every county staff, board, quite a range. So please share it if you have it. Please share that out.
Just don't reply all.
Yes. Actually, I might have emailed it as a blind carbon copy, so it can't. So
Smart.
So
Cool.
now you can move on.
All right, great. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so yeah, this is agenda items for next meeting. And I do have one specific item that Monique raised that we may want to consider, but before that, I also kind of want to just, you know, like we were just doing, talk about more of our overall structure and what we want to incorporate into these meetings more generally. One thing I want to note as a backdrop to that is that of our, how many community members do we have on this technically?
3.
3, okay. One is here. And, you know, that's just a one, it could be just a one-off inconvenience thing or, you know, other conflicting schedules or anything. But I think always in the back of our minds, we should be thinking, how is each meeting advancing our value and service to the community more broadly? But obviously those folks are our current representatives. And so, you know, making sure their input is helping guide where we're going. Because if we aren't providing value through these meetings to the point, you know, that folks aren't attending, then we're kind of, you know, wasting our time. So on that note, like what, do people have ideas about how this, you know, the structure could be more useful, and ideas about content to make it so? Like I said, I have one that I'll throw out there, but I want to step back for a minute first.
So agenda item is ideas for next steps or ideas for the future, or?
I mean, I'm just taking liberties with agenda items for next meeting and making it
And I
a
can
bigger
work with
conversation.
try and, I don't know how it is, how it should be titled, but
Yeah. Go ahead, Nancy.
One thought that I have had, what I had hoped when this idea came to have this become a subcommittee. And I guess what I didn't understand at that time is, with it becoming a subcommittee, all of a sudden we're back to public participation, 4 minutes, state your name, can't have conversation, all of those sorts of things. And I just think that what we are grappling with here is so very serious and so very important. I find it difficult to have conversation when we're constrained to certain agenda items. So therefore, ideas can't spur ideas, because all of a sudden now that has to be put on an agenda and we have to wait 30 days. I had hoped that there would be the ability to just have more open conversation and discussion. I don't know how to do that in this sort of a regimen, but I think that is a huge hindrance. When I first attended Flood Mitigation Alliance meetings, it was not a subcommittee. And what I saw and was able to participate in was open discussion amongst, you know, the department heads and the work that they were doing. And this, I think, framework changes that, and that is concerning to me. And I have heard that from others who have attended, and I wonder if that is, you know, could be part of what we see with respect to the attendance today. So I would just offer that thought.
Any comments on what Nancy shared, or any other thoughts on our current structure? Nancy, do you or anybody else within this structure, and I know that, you know, different committees all operate a little differently. You know, there is a component, one of the fundamental reasons that we have a published agenda is so that public can participate when they know items of interest are going to be discussed. And so there's a fairness and a transparency component to that. And when we veer far off, then folks who might have wanted to be there aren't, because they didn't know we were going to go there. But within, say, a conversation about, if we had an agenda item that was relatively broad and a presentation from, an expert in the field or a group of folks that have experience with that or whatever, it seems like, discussion related to that topic, at least, and stuff that's adjacent to it would be allowable, I guess, is the term I'm thinking of. Do you think that, if we were more, if we had a more specific focus for each meeting, that would help facilitate some of that conversation without getting too granular on the agenda, just more of a broad topic? And I see, Jen, your hand is up too. So yeah, take it away, Jen.
I guess my quick question relative to this would be, if River to Ridge had updates or an announcement like under today's agenda, could we have fit under line 6 if we weren't already on line 5B?
I guess I would say so, but because it's structured as a county committee, subcommittee, what is defined as a partner, with board rules and all of that policy stuff, what is considered a partner under the structure that the board had? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It'd be a bigger question, I think, for Cassie or general government or
Mhm.
something like that to define a partner and because like them or Red Cross or, things like that, who may have updates, who aren't part of the committee, who is partner and is that allowable under the current committee structure, board rules, all of that. So that may be.
And I don't have the document in front of me where we listed initially, and it was not like an exclusive list, but it was intended to be like a representative sampling of partner orgs. My preference would be to err on the side of a pretty liberal definition of that. Who is a partner, who can participate in that section? It doesn't feel like our current risk is over participation. Perhaps if we run into that, then we could address that more rigorously. But I'm a newbie on the board, so I might be speaking out of turn too. Cassie might have a different opinion. I don't know any other staff or people that were in the last iteration. Thoughts about that?
I think that could be we can take that offline maybe and just have another discussion, maybe just bring it. And if it does fit, we'll bring it back. And if it doesn't, have it on there. And if it doesn't fit, we can bring it back for discussion, or if it's got to go somewhere else. I don't know.
I could even imagine a scenario in which Jen or somebody with an associated organization or similar organization said, hey, I would like to share this information we have or update on the project. Oh, you're not on our list? Well, one of the first agenda items is add them to the partner list. Boom. Now you make your partner update. Right. To not get too bogged down in the bureaucracy of it.
Then in theory, we're an advisory committee, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have no budget, we have no enact powers. To me, I think that gives us a little looser reins on
Right.
what we want to do to make it, we have more input, more
Right.
partners, whether you're a partner or not. If you have a
Right.
pertinent thing about flood mitigation, why not allow them to speak?
Right.
It's not like you want to be careful on the slope you go without having an agenda.
Yeah.
But if you have a broader agenda and allow more input, I don't think we're going to get hung.
Amy?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, so with the partner organizations, I do feel, wasn't it the 2 meetings ago, maybe last meeting where we had a pretty full boardroom and Cassie had to really like define, hey, the committee members are the one who vote, not that all the rest of you in this room, right? Don't have valuable opinion and so forth, but that's how this advisory committee was structured. So I do think, to what Wade had pointed out, we had that list of partner organizations. So the committee members who voted, but then other partners who we wanted to make be intentional about making aware of the meeting so they could come. And I look at that agenda item as any of them could participate then and make an update. I agree though, Wade, like right now we're not looking at over participation, but potentially that could arise where then we would address it then. But I would recommend just clarifying with Cassie on that partner piece. And then for the structure of our meetings, I was thinking too, and forgive me because I've been on leave, but I don't think I've missed one of these meetings, but we had talked about initially inviting Bob in from Monroe County Climate Climate Change Task Force, because they have something very successful happening there. And maybe he could give us some pointers on like, hey, this is how we started structuring our meetings. And this is what we found success in. And this is how we bring the most value to the people sitting around this table and to our community and so forth, as a result of these meetings. So again, sorry if I missed that one while I've been gone, but just wanted to bring that up again, that could be helpful too. He might have some good ideas for us.
I don't think you missed any conversation about that, and I think that's a great reminder to, you know, lean on somebody that's been doing this for a minute.
In terms of flow of this being a subcommittee, Dave, I would ask, how is communicating the work that's happening here with the FMA to the committee, the Conservation Education Committee? Are they interested? Do they have questions? It feels a little bit one way. I'm not sure what that relationship should look like, given that we're.
It was an agenda, like, it's usually an agenda item, at least the conservation education one, last time there was an agenda item for updates from flood mitigation. We talked about Mark's dam presentation a little bit and Brandon's presentation, so we did provide, there was an update provided. I wouldn't say there was a whole lot of questions or anything from the committee, but those were both kind of like informational things that Brandon did. And honestly, the dam stuff, a lot of folks who are on that committee were aware of a lot of that presentation anyway. So I mean, that one communication that I've been a part of, that felt fine. I don't know, I can't give any historical context to like what that's been like. I'm happy to provide them with updates and things now since I'm sitting in both meetings.
I guess it gets at the larger piece of, this is information probably that would be helpful to all of the committees, not a select few.
Yeah.
Who would be a good person to reach out to Bob and see if he could speak at our next meeting?
Could do it.
Yeah.
I just emailed them a couple of questions last night, so I'm waiting to hear back from him.
That might, I guess, kind of lay the groundwork for how we want to define structure. Nancy is our one citizen member currently here. How does that sound to you?
Sure, I think it's a great idea to lean on Bob. We do all the time.
Okay, great. So we have that, I guess, for potential agenda item, potentially clarifying partner orgs. Maybe that's done in between, but just confirming that maybe in the next meeting.
Watershed presentations.
Yeah, watershed presentations.
Would that look more like a meeting type thing?
I would think
or
so.
Yeah, I would imagine so, to make sure there's enough time to ask questions and maybe get into it.
maybe since obviously she's here, but Coon Creek has done them before, they would be the first maybe. And then, so that way we give the others time and a heads up that.
Yeah. And I don't know, should we, you know, it seems like talking with Bob might be a pretty robust conversation in and of itself. So maybe not scheduling a presentation at the same time. Yeah.
We can see what that looks like and adjust.
Yeah.
when We're doing the agenda for next week.
Okay. So can we kind of pencil both in
Yep.
and then go with,
Yeah, we'll see what, maybe talking with Bob, he might says it's gonna be, might get deep,
right?
or it's gonna be high level, whatever.
And I would just toss in, if we do a presentation, that's going to be at least 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
And could be, because often they've been an hour, but we can try to be judicious.
All right. Would you / Coon Creek be comfortable being the guinea pig?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We're forever pushing envelopes, so that's fine.
Okay. All right. Are there any other potential items for next agenda? We've got a next meeting date of March 25th. I'm assuming that's the last Tuesday of the month.
I believe so.
That's it.
And as of right now, we'll have to have that meeting maybe at the
Yes.
sheriff's office. I've got a class that's been scheduled for this room for
Okay.
6 months. So if for some reason that gets canceled, we'll put it back here, but we may have to go,
Okay.
we'll communicate that out, but
Yeah.
it just may not be here in this room.
Okay.
So you won't be at the next Flood Mitigation Alliance?
I might be
meeting?
able to break from that class to come.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so 9:30 on Tuesday, March 25th, potentially at the conference room at the sheriff's office. We'll see about location. Any closing thoughts? Okay. Well, we can do it the old fashioned way and ask for a motion to adjourn, or we can just do it.
So moved.
So moved. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon.